Okay, welcome everybody to our Lalamand skills session. We are delighted today to have Geoff Griggs, who's come to Nelson to join us specifically to help us get an insight into the judging experience at the SOBA National Home-brew Competition. So Geoff is head judge at that event, and you've done that a number of times, I think, Geoff?
Many years.
Many years.
Yeah.
A wealth of experience. So we're really fortunate to have Geoff on board. Geoff is also going to be acting as moderator for our league table judging, which will follow on immediately afterwards. So Geoff, just very keen for people to understand the judging environment at the National Home-brew Competition. Do you want to talk about how the room works?
Sure, in a way it's like a big version of what we've got here. Each table, you're going to have a table captain as head judge at that table. I end up in a floating role, going around sorting out problems, troubleshooting, which is pretty much what I think I'm going to end up doing today as well, and that's good. And each table, at the moment, we're thinking of changing this, but at the moment the situation is the tables have a table steward, and the table steward's job is to bring the glasses of beer, the next beer, to the table, and the table steward's job then is to listen to the discussion and, in conjunction with the table captain, write down the appropriate scoring information on the form. And then at the end of that judging for that particular beer, the table steward takes the completed judging notes away, files that, and then goes and gets the next beer and does the whole thing all over again. So the table steward works very closely with the table captain, and there's usually at least two other judges sitting at the table. It's consensus judging, working together to agree a score for that beer.
So there's one form that gets completed from the table.
Absolutely. We changed that a few years ago when we were finding that you were getting different forms saying different things. It was better, we felt, to have a consensus going back to the entrance to explain what happened with their beer, rather than one judge saying this and one judge saying that, and hopefully getting the same result, but not always. So that's very much the role of the table captain, to sort of coordinate the feeling around the table, not to lead the table, but to coordinate and lead the discussion about and to get a consensus of what people around the table thought of about the individual beer.
Awesome. So the number of people on each table?
Usually 4 to 5, including that the table steward.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
And a mix of experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got a table captain who will be the most experienced judge at that table, usually at least one other highly experienced judge, sometimes two other highly experienced judges, then one less experienced judge, and then obviously the table steward as well.
So a bit of a mentoring program to help people
very much
learn
so.
as they go.
Yeah, very much so. You can't beat judging with somebody who's has a higher skill level than you do. When you've got the beer in your mouth and you're hearing somebody else talk about it, that's the best learning you can get, I believe.
Awesome. So the beer arrives at your table. It's turning up in the bottle or the glass?
Turning up pre-poured into XL5, the little wine tasting glasses. So it's pre-poured, pouring kept to a minimum. It's done by stewards out in a kitchen area or a serving area. So the beers come pre-poured. The idea being, hopefully, that nobody in the judging room can see any bottles or anything like that. So there's no question you can see, I recognise that shake bottle. That's always so and so that uses that. So yeah, totally anonymous, just a number.
So the beer is then presented in the glass. What other information do you have in order to be able to judge that beer?
Well, where appropriate, obviously judging notes. Judging notes should be supplied in certain categories as required. Absolutely critical, particularly in the categories that are very broad, experimental, unusual styles, or even if you've produced a beer. For example, I've been talking to a brewer just yesterday, in fact, about a particular German-style beer that this particular brewer has brewed at a slightly lower strength. He wondered what category to put that beer into. This is for the Brewers Guild Awards that are coming up, and I suggested to him that the best thing was, because in every other respect other than the alcohol level, the beer was bang on style. So I said put it into the appropriate category, but with a note saying look, this beer really is that style. It's just I've made it considerably less alcoholic. So the judges will then take that into consideration at the judging table. But certainly with experimental, it is a requirement to say, number one, what is experimental about this beer? Why have you put it into this category? A lot of people put it into a specialty or experimental category thinking it won't get pinged for its stylistic inaccuracy if I put it into a category that's not stylistically defined. But actually the judges want to know, number one, what makes this beer special? Why is it in this category? Or have you just taken the easy option? And if they feel you've just taken the easy option, that will be reflected in the scoring. But it's impossible to judge, for example, a fruit-flavoured or wood-aged beer if you don't know what the process has been and what fruit has been put into it. Let's say it tastes of raspberries, but actually the brewer's put ginger into it or something. You're going to look an idiot if you're judging it and then say this is a really excellent raspberry beer, and then the label on the outside said, well, actually it's a ginger beer, or the other way around. And it has happened in the past.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that might make it challenging is if the beer is actually entered in completely the wrong style. Or they've expressed an ingredient that you can't pick up at all.
Yep, that's right. I mean, if you put coffee in your stout, and the judges just cannot for the life of them actually taste anything coffee related, there's a good chance that beer is going to get marked down for that. And I've completely forgotten what the other thing I was going to say was, but there was something really good that you just... Can you repeat the question? If you can remember what it was.
So if it's entered as...
I know. So I know what it is
bitter,
now.
And it might be a pale ale.
I know what it is now. Yeah. If you enter the beer in the wrong category, it stays in that category and it's judged in that category. It is not up to anybody at the judging level to say, well, actually, you've produced a beautiful ESB, but you've entered it as a pale ale, so therefore we're going to move it into the appropriate category. It will be judged as the beer you have entered it. It is your responsibility to put it in the right category. If you have brewed a pale ale and you think it tastes like an ESB, I might suggest to you on the quiet that you might well enter it as an ESB. If you think it tastes more like an ESB than a pale ale, because the judge is going to be in exactly the same position. So the moral of the story is be careful how you enter your beers and pay close attention to the style categories.
So for me, just to quickly summarise, it sounds as though the brewers entering should make sure they're very familiar with the BJCP notes on that category.
Absolutely.
And they follow those to the letter. They should enter beers into categories based on what the beer tastes like, rather than what they set out to do.
Yep.
And if there is anything unusual about the beer, then providing notes about that to assist the judging are going to, again, help the brewer get the best score.
Yes, but don't use it as an excuse. Don't use your notes. Well, actually, I did try and produce this pale ale, but I've got this really amazing, funky Belgian yeast character. So therefore, I'm going to mention it to you in the hope that you're going to judge it and not penalise me for having Belgian yeast character in my pale ale, because the judges will. So don't make your judges' notes an excuse. Give the information that needs to be is helpful in the judging, but don't make excuses.
Awesome. Many thanks.
Cool.